If you like the idea of a Nissan Z, but you want it to be a little more high performance, they've got you covered. Nissan is back with the Nismo Z for 2024. This is Out Motorsports, channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and I am here with the 2024 Nismo Z. Let's dive right into what this thing is, and then we'll get it out on some back roads and see just how good it is to drive. So what is the Nismo Z? Well, they take the standard Nissan Z performance and they add a whole bunch of stuff to it. So first of all, power and torque are up. You're up by 20 horsepower and 34 pound-feet. So 420 horsepower, 384 pound-feet from that 3-liter twin-turbo V6. Now, that's paired exclusively here to an automatic transmission. Nissan said they wanted to chase lap times and get the fastest car they could, which means you have to have an automatic in these days, but I'm not sure if the enthusiasts are going to love it. This is a 9-speed automatic. It's a torque converter unit, not a DCT. It is sourced from Mercedes-Benz, of all places, and built by Jatco under license. So Nissan uses the same one in the standard Z. They've changed some things here. They changed the clutches. They've changed the shift times. Allegedly, it's 50% faster on the downshifts, and of course, it's got paddle shifters, but that's all you're gonna get. Of course, you've got a limited slip differential as standard, and then they changed all the suspension, so it's got stiffer spring rates, retuned dampers, different sway bars, different suspension bushings, added chassis bracing everywhere, and that's all allegedly going to be pretty good. And then of course you've got the famed raised wheels. These are a 19-inch wheel. It's a 10-inch wheel in the front and a 10.5-inch wheel in the rear with a Dunlop summer tire. So that is it for the Nismo Z on paper. Let's get behind the wheel and see how it is to drive. Okay, so driving the 2024 Nismo Z, I'm on some back roads. I took this out of the city because the city ride is important to talk about, but people buying these cars, of course, you're going to be driving these on good roads and on the track and all that as well. Now, one of my biggest complaints about the Z when I drove the regular version, I had a 2023 Proto Performance, and then I've driven a couple others as well, all stock from Nissan, but they're kind of soft, and I think they're a little undersprung or underdamped. So I was excited to drive this one because they've modified the suspension among everything else to be much stiffer. So that will make a difference. The tires will make a difference. Tires make such a difference with sports cars and any car, really. So that's the other thing that I was really excited to feel out. So this is a Dunlop summer tire. Now, the transmission, like I said, is the same as the automatic that you get in a Z Performance or a base model Z. Any Z is going to be this Mercedes automatic, but in the Nismo, it is modified to be 50% faster downshifts. So we'll talk about that in a second here. Now, you've got 3 different drive modes, and I'm driving it in Sport Plus, but it really doesn't do a whole lot because the dampers are not adaptive, the exhaust is not active, so it's really just going to change your shift pattern, your throttle response, and your steering weight. So you kind of pick your own adventure there. Now, there are a couple other updates that Nissan made to this car with the interior, notably these Recaro seats. These are a really nice seat for someone built exactly like me. If you're built any bigger than me, you're probably going to find them a little tight. They do not have adjustable lumbar, and the lumbar is kind of hit or miss for how much I like it, but right now it feels pretty good on my back. They're manually adjustable for the sake of weight, so you've got a couple knobs over here on the side that will adjust all those for you. Now, one interesting thing with this transmission, I'm going to talk about this and harp on this quite a bit because we got a lot of comments on Instagram in particular when I posted this car and that, you know, I had it in for the week, and a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't care that they were chasing lap times. I don't want a 9-speed torque converter automatic as my transmission. And honestly, I don't either. If you leave it in drive, even in Sport Plus, it shifts fine, but it's constantly, it's just busy. It's always shifting. And the logic for, you know, keeping you in a gear, changing gears mid-corner, whatever, is fine, but it's not great. So it's one of those where I just, you know, the manual would have made this better. And the manual in the Z is not a fantastic manual, but it's a good manual. So, you know, I think that would have really been probably the move here. The other thing with the automatic, it does have these paddle shifters. You can slide it into its manual mode, and now, you know, it's going to listen to you. But in the city in particular, when you're driving less performance-y, it manages to have rev hang as an automatic, which I think is weird. It seems as though Nissan sort of has the car programmed to keep building boost, and it feels like it wants to still accelerate even if you lift throttle completely. So there's a little lag sometimes, and that is compounded with paddles that in anything but Sport Plus are pretty slow to respond. So if I click this back down to the standard mode, it just is, fast on the downshifts, those are great, but the upshift sometimes is fast, sometimes is not, and it's unpredictable. And predictability is what we want in a sports car, because if you're mid-corner, you want it to always do the exact same thing. Now, I put this back to standard, and I'm actually liking the steering more in standard than in Sport Plus. It's lightened up just a touch and feels better here. Sport Plus just adds some weight, but steering wise, it's got pretty good feel. It's a good ratio. It feels, you know, it's easy enough to feel where you got the front end pointed. So I do like the steering in this. And so power and torque are really more than fine here. I mean, it didn't need more power than it already had at 400. 420 is just something, you know, so they can say you get more power with the Nismo. It's nice to have, but it doesn't necessarily need it. So like I said, steering feels good. The automatic works here, but you know, part of this for me, like, I don't live out on the West Coast where there's canyon roads where you can go super fast. I live on the East Coast. Everything's tighter, slower, and a little more technical, and I don't need 9 gears. I don't even need 6 gears to have fun. I would really enjoy a slightly slower car that had the manual. Now, thankfully, Nissan offers that, so you can just purchase that one if that's what you really want. But with the Nismo, the automatic, like when you start ripping on it, is pretty good. It's just when you're not ripping on it, that's where I feel like it kind of falls a little flat. Now, suspension-wise, too, I thought the regular Z, I still think this, is either undersprung or underdamped. I'm not smart enough to know which, but it's too soft. But I think with Nismo here, they redid the suspension bushings for one, and then they also redid the actual damper valving rates and the spring rates. So everything is turned up, and it feels really good on these back roads. Actually, the whole car is coming together on these roads. So in that regard, it feels proper. And that's where the regular Z sort of fell apart for me. It was too soft when you got it here. We have not achieved a Goldilocks suspension setup with this car. The regular Z is soft enough that it's nice in city driving. This one is so harsh that it's not nice in city driving. So that's a little frustrating, but just something to, you know, think about. Yeah, it's just kind of like mushes shifts, and like it's like transmission's the biggest letdown in this car, to be honest. The brakes, by contrast, are perhaps the biggest highlight of this car. They feel fantastic. The brakes are upsized here over a regular Z Performance. You've got a 15-inch rotor in the front and a 13.8-inch rotor in the back, which I find hysterical just because my first sports car I owned was a Mazda Miata that had a 15-inch wheel. So to have a 15-inch rotor, I think, is just wild. But the brakes feel really, really good. They've got nice initial bite, good pedal feel throughout the travel. They're easily the single highlight of this car. Now, interior-wise, I know Nismo didn't change a whole lot here. They changed the seats, of course. They added a little red stripe to the steering wheel and some Alcantara. And, you know, the interior is a nice place to spend time for what it is. It's pretty simple. I know it's kind of an evolution of the 370Z. I'm okay with it. The infotainment screen is thankfully down low, out of your way, kind of unobtrusive. Your climate controls are 3 rotary dials that are easy enough to deal with. They're all automatic as well if you want that. It's good. You've got good visibility, low belt line with the doors, which I also appreciate. 2 things about the interior, one of which is that I feel like I have less room in it than in the Supra from a headroom point of view. The Supra has just a little bit of that bubble roof going on, and I think that helps just a little bit more than what this has here. And then the other thing with the interior, it's been very hot and humid in DC. The air conditioning is somehow not doing so great in certain cases. It's an extreme case where most days it's going to be just fine. But yesterday in particular was just disgustingly hot and humid, and I was wishing for colder air and a faster fan speed both. Now, the other thing to mention is the exhaust on this car, because you've heard it throughout the whole video. I do think it sounds pretty good. I think V6s are hard to make sound good in a lot of cases, and I think the Nissan VQ series, which this is a sort of evolution of, they have sounded generally really good with factory exhaust, and they've sounded really awful with aftermarket exhaust. If you've got an aftermarket exhaust on your 350Z, I'm sorry, I probably don't like it. But this, I think, sounds pretty good. it is loud. I mean, the car it's loud in the car. You've got exhaust noise, you've got tire noise, you've got road noise, but that's the point of a sports car. So I do think it fits. This is just not going to be the most relaxed thing for, you know, a long highway drive, but like that's not the point. So overall, you know, with the Nismo Z, I'm kind of conflicted because it's not what I want out of a Z. I think what I want out of a Z is what the Z Performance is. I want the manual, I want a little softer suspension, although that one's too soft, so I would have to do some sort of aftermarket setup, and I want a fun color. And they don't offer fun colors. They offer a red, but otherwise it's like black, white, gray. And this is the hot one. These should be the crazy colors. So I don't know, that's something that kind of bugs me too. But if you really want all the performance upgrades, it is going to cost you. So this is $67,000, whereas a Z Performance is going to be mid-50s. So just something to consider, because for $67,000 too, you're more expensive than a 3.0 Super Premium. You're hovering in that like BMW M2, Mustang Dark Horse territory, and those are, you know, those are much more modern feeling cars. This is like a very modern version of an old school car, which I like, and I think certain buyers are really gonna like. But for 67 grand, I mean, that's a lot of money for anything. And so that's the 2024 Nismo Z. Thank you so much for coming along. You know, this is an interesting car. I think the regular Z with some stuff done is really more my speed. If I were the one purchasing, I think if you really, really want, you know, a Nissan, if you're a diehard Z person and you want the best one, this is not a bad car in a lot of ways. Is it the best balance? Is it the most Goldilocks sort of setup? No. Does it look better than the regular Z with that longer nose? Yeah, I think so. Is it worth the extra cash over a Z Performance? That is something that only you can figure out. I don't know your finances, but for me, I think it's a little too far one way, and I think I'd rather do a Z Performance in yellow with a stick with an aftermarket suspension setup. I think that would be the one that got me the most excited and happy. But if I think you're a Nissan diehard, this is where this is going to be just the most appealing for you. And it's not a bad car, especially like I was saying, if you live on roads where you can really enjoy this day to day, it does come together, it does gel really well. If you live somewhere where it's slower speed, rougher roads, in a city type environment, you're going to hate this because it's too much of one thing and not enough of the other. And, you know, I don't mind the fact that Nissan did that because it is what it is. The thing is, though, when you get to this price point of $67,000, $70,000, suddenly you've got cars with adaptive suspension, you've got cars with, you know, active exhaust, you've got cars that can do both things and be soft and quiet and, you know, really turned up and rip snorting loud and all that. So that's the part where this sort of starts to fall down just a touch. But in any case, that's the 2024 Nismo Z. Thank you so much for coming along. As always, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe right here. Let me know what you think. Would you buy this? Would you buy a regular Z? Would you buy a Supra? Would you buy an M2? Would you buy a Mustang Dark Horse? What would you do for $65,000 to $70,000? I'm really curious to hear because everyone is different, and I do think this car is neat. I'm glad it exists. So let me know if you feel similarly, and give us a follow on other socials. Head over to outmotorsports.com if you want to. It's so loud when you're on it. Head over to outmotorsports.com if you want to join a community of fellow LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors. We've got events both on the street and on the track through the rest of the year, through October at this point. We're planning more, of course. We'd love to have you for any and all that. We've also got an online Discord server membership program where you can join and connect with other like-minded folks. So thank you so much for coming along. Until next time, stay safe, be well. See you again soon.